Welcome to your lungs. So imagine you're at your mindfulness session and your mindfulness leader tells you to breathe in. So your diaphragm contracts and becomes smaller, so your lungs become bigger. And then there's less pressure in your lungs and more pressure in this air outside. So some of the air makes its way down through either your mouth or your nose or both if you're fancy. It goes down here. Now they reach the glottis, which is a little flap which controls whether things coming in through your mouth go to your esophagus or down your trachea. In this case, this is air, so glottis opens up and they all move through. Now we're going to go move down the trachea as we're breathing in, as the diaphragm is contracting. Now we get to the two bronchi. So this is one bronchus. So some of them are going to go over this way, some of them are going to go this way, and they make their way down the little branches. When they reach the end, bum, 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 they reach. Oh, they move through all, these are bronchioli, the smaller branches, by the way, if you want to know. They reach the microscopic alveoli. You need to see on there. And here we've enlarged this so that you can see properly. So your air is coming down into your alveoli here. And you got these all, the veins there, and the arteries are all blood. So the blue ones represent the unoxygenated blood, and the red is the oxygenated blood. So the oxygen in this air is going to move through a thin membrane, and it's going to move into the blood, and it's going to turn this unoxygenated blood, which has come from the heart through the pulmonary artery, and it's going to whoosh it into oxygenated blood, which is then going to make its way out to the pulmonary vein, which we'll get to next time when we talk about the heart. And now your air, which now has a little bit less oxygen in it, is going to move. Oh, and also the carbon dioxide that was in the unoxygenated blood is going to move back into the air. And then now your mindfulness instructor is going to say, and breathe out through your nose. So you're going to relax your diaphragm, and everything is going to move up along. All your air, it's all going out. Not all of it. Sometimes we leave most of it there. If you left all of it out, your lungs would collapse. But there's some percentage that stays in. Anyway, so it's moving out, your glottis opens up, makes its way out, and you're breathing out through your nose because your mindfulness instructor said to, so they all go out. And you are ready, and your blood is more oxygenated, and you're ready to take your next breath when your mindfulness instructor tells you to. So join us next time for the heart. All right, go. All right, welcome to your heart, everybody. We have a little diagram here, nice and labeled. The blue is your unoxygenated blood, and the red is your oxygenated blood. And in this case, all the oxygenated blood is coming from the lungs, and then, well, we'll get to everything. So we're gonna start over, I guess we'll start on the left side, which is the right side in diagrams, because this is like if you're looking head on at a person, so right and left is flipped. So we have the oxygen, which is coming from the pulmonary vein, which comes from the lung, which we explored in part 1 of our saga on homeostasis. So the blood's gonna move on in, as it does. It's gonna collect in the left atrium, it also comes from over here. So it's gonna be packed here in the left atrium. All right? Now, while this blood is collecting here, something else is happening, something super exciting. The left ventricle is contracting, and all the blood that was in the left, let's just pretend that this blood was here the whole time. All the blood that was in the left ventricle is getting squeezed out and moved out through this semilunar valve, and it moves up through the aorta, and it goes out into the body where it helps in metabolism. So the left ventricle has contracted, and then it's relaxed now, so there's less blood in it because it's all moved out. And then in the next stage, the oxygenated blood is moving through this atrioventricular valve, and it's collecting in the left ventricle. While it's moving through here, this semilunar valve is closed. And then we go back to the next phase in the heartbeat, and then the left ventricle contracts again, and this all moves on its merry way through the aorta and out into the body, and it's super fun. All right, so that's our oxygenated blood dealt with. Now we're gonna move to the unoxygenated blood, which here we have in blue. It's coming from the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava, which both feed into, actually let's say that there was some in the right ventricle to start, which both feed into the right atrium in here. So while this blood is collecting in here, the right ventricle is contracting, and the blood in the right ventricle is moving up through into the pulmonary arteries. And some of it goes this way into your right lung, and some of it goes over here into your left lung. And then that goes into your lung, as we said in our last part, on the lung. And when the ventricle contracts, the blood doesn't move backwards because this atrioventricular valve is one way, so it only moves this way. The blood can't move the other way because of the structure. So then the right ventricle is done contracting. It's now relaxed again, and now it goes to the next stage of the heartbeat where the atrium contracts and all this blood moves down into the right ventricle. And then we go back again and we do the next phase where the right ventricle contracts and it moves out through the semilunar valve into the lungs to get oxygenated. And while this is contracting, it's collecting in the right atrium again. And then this blood goes on its merry way, and it's super exciting. What else were we going to talk about? Ooh, we have some heartbeats. Phases. So this is a less anatomically correct, but it shows you the phases a little bit more nicely. So over here, this is when the atrium is contracting. So the blood has, well, I guess we'll start with this one. So the blood had been collecting in the atrium, and then the atrium is contracting, and the atrioventricular valve has opened up to allow all this blood into the left ventricle. And at the same time, the phases for the unoxygenated and the oxygenated blood are all in the same time frame. They happen at the same time. So the ventricles contract and the atriums contract at the same time. The two ventricles contract at the same time, a different time from the two atriums. So at the same time that this oxygenated blood is happening, the unoxygenated blood has collected in the right atrium and is now being squeezed into the right ventricle at the same time. And then we're going to move to the next stage in the heartbeat with our handy dandy model number 2 over here. So now the blood is here, but because the super powerful cardiac muscles of the ventricles have the biggest, thickest walls because they're the most powerful. So now it's contracting, and these atrioventricular valves have closed, so there's no backflow of blood, and the oxygenated blood is going to move out through the aorta, through the semilunar valves, and the unoxygenated blood is going to move out through its semilunar valve into the lungs, where it gets oxygenated and comes back again through here. And this is all for homeostasis, for metabolism, for keeping everything oxygenated, moving blood around, moving waste products, keeping your blood pumping so that your mindfulness session goes well. Join us next time when we do the digestive system and we see how that happens. Thanks, everybody. Subscribe. So it's after mindfulness, and you've just had a great Parmesan cheese bagel with cream cheese. How is it going to get digested? Well, that's what we're going to talk about on episode 3 of the saga on homeostasis. So this is our whole layout. We're going to start from the top, and we're going to work our way down. Isn't that right, Chris? Okay. So move in. We need some teeth on this guy. Okay, you move in. Parmesan cheese bagel with cream cheese goes in here. You're biting it, you're mashing it up mechanically. Salivary glands are secreting some enzymes, which are salivary amylase, which is breaking down the starch into smaller polymers. Then, there's your tongue, it's moving it around and all that stuff. Let's make a color for this. This is gonna be our Parmesan cheese bagel. Okay, and then you're like, oh my goodness, it's nice and chewed. So you're like, I'm gonna swallow. Okay, so it goes past your epiglottis. Remember last time in the trachea, how the epiglottis or the glottis controlled whether it went to the trachea or the esophagus? Last time I went to the trachea. This time, this is a Parmesan cheese bagel that's been chewed at this point. So we're going down the esophagus. So now, this is the bolus. The bolus is basically, when you swallow, your esophagus squeezes the food down nice and powerful, and the lump of food that goes down is called a bolus. So our Parmesan cheese bagel has become a bolus, which is moving down our esophagus, and then it goes down into the depths of our stomach, which is super acidic, and it's breaking everything up, and it's just destroying our Parmesan cheese bagel, which at this point cannot really be called food. So all the gastric acid is dissolving this, and then our Parmesan cheese bagel, which now is probably better known as chyme, is going to move down into the depths of section 2, is what we're going to call it. So it's come from the stomach, we've moved down, And along our way, we're gonna pass by the pancreas, the gallbladder, and the liver. The liver is gonna be secreting some bile. The gallbladder is storing it, and then it's gonna put it down here where it's gonna end up in the small intestines to help dissolve everything. The pancreas, similarly, is going to be secreting enzymes to be used in digestion. So this, let's use a new color for our Parmesan cheese bagel, because it's no longer Parmesan cheese bagel, it is now chyme, okay? So our chyme is moving through our small intestine, and as this happens, it's still getting dissolved. The bile from the gallbladder and the liver are breaking it down the more, as are the enzymes from the pancreas. So it's still getting broken down as it moves through the small intestine. All throughout the small intestine, the nutrients are getting absorbed into the blood as it goes. So it's super long to increase surface area so that it can all be absorbed. So we're gonna move all the way through, but we're gonna take a quick detour, which is going to be a magnification of the small intestine. So this here is a small intestine, but it's a cross section. So you can see the villi on the sides, which their purpose is to increase surface area. So our bile is moving through the center here. And it's got lots of nutrients, it's getting broken down, it's getting ready to be absorbed. So, and now we have a nice close-up of the villi itself. So this is one of those. We're going by, what do we say? Okay, we're good, everybody, no technical difficulties. So there's microvilli here, help increase the surface area more, so all the nutrients can go in here. And here we have our atrial and our ventricle, where this is absorbed into the blood and then moves on its merry way. So all the nutrients are absorbed into the blood here in these villi, all throughout the small intestine. So this sort of thing is happening all throughout the small intestine. So finally, when it makes its way all the way through the small intestine, all the nutrients that the body's gonna take have been taken out, and we are finally making our way down into the large intestine. Now, because this has no nutrients, we're gonna give it a new color. We're gonna make it green now, okay? And we're going into the large intestine. The large intestine is actually shorter than the small intestine, but it's bigger, it's wider. So it starts to go by moving up, moves over to the side. The purpose of the large intestine is to pull out as much moisture as possible. So all the moisture is getting pulled out. This is more liquid as it is at the start than it is at the end. And finally, when it gets to the end, it's more solid. And at this point, our chyme has become some feces, which is going to exit through the anus into, hopefully, a toilet. And that completes the saga of digestion, but it does not complete our saga on homeostasis, because this is only part 3. So join us next time for part 4, which is gonna highlight the kidney and that. So, subscribe. Welcome to your kidney. So here we have some blood. This is all your oxygenated blood. These are filtrates that are gonna get taken out, and this is some salt. So it's gonna come in, pumped from the heart to the renal artery, and it's gonna split up, and they're all gonna go, it's all gonna split up, and they're all gonna go back in through these medullas here. And so they'll all move back down, and by the time they move through here, they will have become urine, and then they'll exit through the ureter. But how exactly does all this become urine? Well, funny you should ask, because that's what we're here to explain. So, this is an individual nephron, which are all located in the cortex and medulla. So this is all your oxygenated blood with the filtrates and the salt. So it comes in through this afferent artery, and it's gonna move in a big circle here. It's gonna get thinner, and it's gonna exit as an efferent. The purpose of it getting smaller is that it increases the blood pressure. So in this glomerulus, glomerulus, there's lots of it's high blood pressure. It's a big bunch of capillaries moving around, and there's because of the high blood pressure, there's a lot of plasma and filtrates that are leaving it through. Well, we'll get to that anyway. So here we go. So we're gonna push our blood through, and because more blood keeps coming and these little capillaries get smaller and smaller, blood pressure is getting super high, moves around in here, goes up into little paths, and then they're going to, the blood itself is going to exit, and it's going to then be unoxygenated. Anyway, now the filtrates, well, let's move down here for all that. So, now this is a little close-up, a sneak peek at your blood. So I guess this is a red blood cell, this is all your blood plasma. So this is the fenestrated capillary wall. So you can see there's like little holes through which the filtrates can move through. And then just past the fenestrated capillary wall, there's a basement membrane, which is the membrane here, which is kind of jelly, and it only lets smaller particles through. So things are gonna move through here, all the filtrates and salt and whatnot. And then we have the podocytes, which help in filtration, and then the podocytes form the inner wall of the Bowman's capsule, which surrounds the glomerulus. So let us move to that then. So we have all of our plasma with all the filtrates and whatnot in it, and we are moving down through here. And at this point, this is going to be selective reabsorption. So some of these, we got rid of all the filtrates through here, or most of them, a lot of them, but we need some of them back. So let's say that, you know, we really need some green filtrate, whatever this represents. It's kind of just a general filtrate. So this is going to go back in. Imagine there's capillaries all around here that are reabsorbing this filtrate. So let's say it moves back into the blood because it's needed, because we don't want to get rid of all of it. Okay, so this is going to move down through the proximal convoluted tubule, down into the loop Penley. So at this point, in the middle here, there is it's very salty, and the water is going to move out into the salty part because of osmosis and whatnot. So well, I don't have a bead for water, but if you can imagine the water moving there, that would be great. And then we're gonna move around back through here. And on this side, it's going to be the opposite, and we're gonna lose some salt or gain some salt depending on how salty everything is. At this point, we're gonna move back up through the distal convoluted tubule, and at this point, we are gaining our moisture back, because if you're dehydrated, you don't wanna lose all this moisture. So moisture has been moving back into the blood because you don't want to pee it all out. And this is now urine, which is exciting. So imagine these are all collecting, or this is a collecting duct, and there's a bunch of these little chains, and you can imagine other nephrons that are all connecting to this connecting duct. So you can say that this little is coming in from over here, and they're all moving down through the collecting duct. And then if we can move back to our oh, we just lost a bead. Rest in peace. Anyway, so this has been in the medulla. It's moving into this pelvis, which is nice and spongy. We've got our urine. It's moving out through the ureter, and then you pee it out, and it's great. And then your urine is nice and filtered. So, yeah, that's pretty good. Subscribe.